Now, people will say there's some FICO score inflation, right? These scores are really booming because no, it isn't. The scores have basically been the same since 2010. It's just that we originated more loans, purchases and refinances together. That's why you see a volume increase. If you actually look at it past 2010, everything looks great, right? The cash flows of American households are good. So when people people try to lie to you, it says, "Oh no, it's just the FICO scores are wrong." No, it isn't, right? They were good buyers from 2010 and on, and they just got better and better and better, right? You hardly see any low FICO score buying anymore. So the credit channels always showed that Americans were doing good. So traditionally, people don't sell to be homeless. I know it's an interesting concept, but you just don't think, okay, I'm going to sell my house and buy something with much higher cost or rent at a higher cost. No, homeowners are doing well. If there's a job loss recession, of course, you're going to get some stress in the data. But as you can see here, for 12 straight years, there was nothing in the data that warrant the over panicking of the housing market in terms of stability of inventory. And we just had the biggest crash in sales. So people go, why aren't people selling? Why would they? Right? It's an interesting concept, sell to be homeless. Never seen it happen before, but keep on fooling yourself. This is it. Credit matters to inventory data, housing economics, and in the general economy as well. Look, we're dealing with inflation. The Fed wants to create a recession, everything. Labor markets are holding up still because the household balance sheets in America have never looked better. And trust me, all around the world, they are jealous of us because a lot of countries have short-term debts. Their debts payments are going to recast over and over. Here in America, not our issue, right? We have the least exposure to short-term debt in America. Next chart will be even more clear for us. Home prices, right? They really took off. Now, equivalence of rent is how the government tracks rent. Rent inflation is always growing because most people are always working. So rent inflation really doesn't have what we call big deflationary collapses. We had a few months in 2010 where the shelter inflation index or CPI went negative, but not here. Now, the housing bubble years, we had a massive credit boom, right? And then we had a credit bust. So all those charts I showed to you in the past, right? What do we know now? We know credit was deteriorating 2005 to 2008. We know demand was collapsing from 2005 to 2008. This is all before the job loss recession. Here, we had an unbelievable spike in home prices, right? For me, I called it the savagely unhealthy housing market. For me, it was trying to convince people that we have to worry about home prices accelerating out of control, not decelerating. But even with the biggest collapse in home sales, the index is firmed up. Like, how is that possible? How is it possible that the month-to-month data is still positive and the year-over-year data is still positive? It was because rates went lower, mortgage demand picked up, total inventory, right? You have three different charts to tell you you're at all-time lows. In a stable housing market with demand, low inventory matters. When demand is collapsing, like we saw last year, the month-to-month prices were declining. Yes, even in a seasonal declining period for pricing power, we still saw the month-to-month prices fall. But that was with rates going from 5 to 7.5% in a seasonal weak period. We saw new listings data decline. That marketplace is gone for 6 months. 6 months, starting November 9th. People who follow my podcast or listen to my work, I said November 9th was the start of the change of the housing market. Let's see who finally picks up to it. And even today, people are still talking, home prices are crashing 20%. No, they're not, because demand stabilized. And as you can see in the top right-hand corner, right, you don't see the decline anymore, right? We had a little bit of decline from the peak, but it firmed up, right? So this hopefully can show you that when we do have major price crashes, we see inventory skyrocket. You go back to that first chart, you can see it, vertical inventory. Then that downtrend since 2007, really. And we haven't been able to get back to it. Now, I do believe the history of inventory channels show that inventory can grow when there's weakness in demand. And then we see days on market growth. Homes take longer to sell, but you don't have the inventory spike like we've seen. Every single year for the last 7-8 years, I've had to deal with inventory is going to spike. People are going to rush to get out. That's a Wall Street thing. That's a YouTube thing. That's a grifter thing. That's not how housing economics works. You have the data now, right? And you're going to see the data every single week. We update it to the weekly data. If there was anything like that happening, we would see it in the new listings data and the weekly inventory. We don't have to wait for the NAR reports that are still lagging behind. We have the fresh, newest data. Not the case. And this is with mortgage rates not really breaking under 6% yet, right? So now we can see 6 to 7% rates now are not the 6 to 7% rates that we saw last year, right? The market is adapted to it. Demand is stabilized, and we're dealing with the realities of an economy where the Federal Reserve really wants to push for a recession to fight inflation. But if that's the case, then traditionally what happens after 1982, bond yields fall like they have since October 27th. Rates tend to fall with it. The mortgage market is still terribly not functional. If it was normal, rates would be at 5.25. Could you imagine the housing market if mortgage rates were 5.25? I can tell you, we still have people talking about 20% home price crash, right? You have the data now. You are smarter than a lot of people that you see on TV now because you can see the difference, right? Like I always say, be the detective, not the troll. This is US nominal home prices and real prices. Okay, real prices adjusting to inflation, the equivalence of rent. As you can see, real home prices are falling a little bit, but nominal home prices aren't. So what I want everyone to do is focus on that upper corner right level. This is a more clear version of what's happened in the housing market. The last few months of 2022, the month-to-month prices were declining, right? The market could not handle rates going past 7%, right? And the people that were selling their homes, right? Selling your home is very seasonal. They were cutting prices to get the product off. But as rates fell, demand stabilized, you can see that nominal home prices are upticking again, not crashing, upticking again. Now, you're going to see a lot of people that are going to say, but real home prices are crashing or falling. This is true. There's a difference between nominal home prices and real home prices. So real prices adjusting to inflation, those data lines are going to be much more negative, but on a nominal basis, 4% year over year growth, 0.5. Remember, we already had the sales crash. So people that are talking about we need home prices are going to fall another 20%, they're going to need to see sales collapse even more. And it's not the case. This chart gives you a little bit more of a clear view of the nominal versus real, but you can see this. As soon as rates started to fall, even at above 6%, the pricing firmed up. So if you're out there and your buyers are going, where's the inventory? You have the data now, right? You have all the data at your fingertips to say, this is the inventory levels. Now, for us at HousingWire, Altos Research, they actually have live inventory data for every zip code in America. Every zip code, you would have the entire buyer versus seller inventory channel and gives you a grade of it. Is it a seller's market or buyer's market? Because we believe weekly inventory, weekly housing economic data matters more than old lagging data, because a lot of people are still stuck back in the 2022 housing market, and the pricing, you can see it right there. It's changed because the data told you it was changing for months.